everybody. I love the after lunch slot because everybody's like nice and sleepy. So let's go. This is Seattle if you don't know where you are. So we're Casual Connect if again you don't know where you are. So what I'm going to talk about, the title is Measure or Die. I put it in red because it's really important. And I added like a big dinosaur so you know it's like really cool as well. So one of my main motivations to do this presentation, is I'm working at Flurry now as like their kind of games division basically, and I do a lot of work with developers. We have like a program where we get like small developers and try to help them out, to move to freemium and to do other things. And so we get a lot of questions about these things, and there's a lot of like anxiety in the air. And that anxiety is well put because as we published a week ago, the market's gone upside down very quickly since Apple introduced in-app purchases like a little over 6 months ago. So there's definitely something there, and I mean a lot of people knew that already anyway, but it's kind of good to see it in numbers. And that's why the message is you really need to evolve, otherwise you could be in trouble. Why are we in a good position to talk about this? The title is Measure or Die, Analytics and Free-to-Play Game Design. And the analytics part, obviously Flurry, that's probably why, if you guys know Flurry, that's probably why you know us. That's our mission. We're the most popular app analytics tool. There's huge number of people using it. Huge penetration, pretty much every device out there has at least one Flurry app on it. We track 3 times more sessions than Twitter. And most of them are more useful than Twitter traffic as well. And it's free, which is kind of appropriate for this particular topic. And then the free-to-play mobile game design part comes from my personal background. So I have a background in online, social, freemium. Before joining Flurry, I was studio director for Playfish in the UK. And before that, I was creative director for EA Mobile in the UK, and also development director in Sumea, which is like the Finnish development studio for digital chocolate. So I have a long story of working with mobile and then online and social as well. And to prove it, I have this old picture of me at the time when I used to work with feature phones. So what we're going to talk about today, first we're going to start with just a quick run through the history of mobile game design. And then we're going to talk about the latest big event, which is the rise of free-to-play and analytics. We're going to talk a little bit how you need to evolve, because a lot of the things that you used to do before stay the same, but there's new things that you need to think about. And then just try to finish on time, hopefully. So just to give some context of this change, I wanted to just go quickly overrun through how mobile game design has evolved over the years. So basically, if you work with mobile for a while, you know that basically it's catching up with the phones. In the beginning, you had some horrible phones, and you basically couldn't do anything with it. And then after a while, you could do something, and that was the best you could do. And then they were getting better and better, and more processing power, better UI, more reliable network connectivity, and every new of these developments changed the way games were made. So the first generation of games was Snake. There was only one game, the first generation. And it was basically that was exactly what was possible at the time. It actually worked pretty well for the kind of phones it ran into. Second generation, funny enough, was connected games. So it used to be little WAP games, which were, if you don't know them, it's basically a little web page that you go through. You select a link, and then it computes some result and gives back to you. But then, for some reason, or actually for cost reasons, data became really expensive. So that kind of disappeared, but in parallel, the phones actually started getting better, so you could actually do things like color, and and then just better processing powers, and so at that time but the connection was not reliable and it was really expensive. So at this time we got really good at doing single player games, basically nice single player games that you could play on the go, which is a lot what iPhone games today are. Is something you can go and play on the rush, etc. So this is kind of when I think the mobile industry started really finding its feet, and this is what we're good about. We're good about short sessions, all those things. And also just on a technical side, this is also the time where we had to learn to deal with fragmentation. So at this time, I used to work in games which were ported over to over 500, 600 phones, and So it's kind of a lot of work to kind of try to make something that worked across different screen sizes and all these things. So we got very good at that, and then the iPhone came, and then we didn't need to be good at that anymore. But now we needed to be good with touch and new better ways of interacting with the game. And also this actually brought the persistent connection back. So now you could actually, like a lot of people had like a good data plan, and you could actually kind of rely on the fact that there was a connection most of the time. There's still the iPods and stuff, but like you could start thinking about things that relied on a connection again. And we got very good at doing that. And now the latest development is in-app purchase, which it was kind of like the last missing piece to enable the free-to-play or like freemium model, particularly on iPhone, where it's like very, very smooth. Like people already have the sorry, people already had the billing mechanism, and what can I do? I hope there's not too many wires around here. Yeah. Oh, if I don't finish, I love you, Mom. And anyway, so yeah, Apple like very good in-app purchases, as some of you might have experienced already. So, this led to free-to-play. Obviously, a lot of people, get scared, like free. Why am I giving like the labor, of my love, the things that worked for like many, many years for free. And the reality is like, particularly for digital things, when the distribution cost goes down and gets near to zero effectively, it really makes sense for you to give it away so you can get to scale. And then if you have scale, you don't actually need to rely on, oh, that was efficient. You don't really need to rely on just like a single upfront transaction anymore. There's many different ways you can actually get value from the game. So the obvious one is microtransactions, but also you can do other things like advertising. People are more open to advertising on a free experience than they would be on a paid one. And also like one that's kind of like underrated is if you have a lot of people using your game, you're actually learning from them, and there's actually a lot of value there. And so just the fact there's a lot of people using the game kind of gives you like information that you can use to improve. And also it's a very important thing to know that I don't know if you guys like know this, but like the biggest jump for somebody to make like a microtransaction is the first one. So a lot of people will never spend, and then the minute they do the first one, then they're like, oh, okay, I'll do more. It's kind of like Amazon was in the beginning. So, and then afterwards, it's so easy. So if you have like 95% of your audience not paying, you just need to remember that they are one like a transaction away to being like a paying customer, and it's kind of like up to you really. So just to show like how these things are pretty valuable, like in the free model, like we did some research. I know people love numbers, so I made sure to have a couple of new charts today. And this one is something we did based on, we looked at a few games which have between 50,000 DAU up until maybe 750. So reasonably big games, successful games. And this is kind of like the amount of where the transactions are at. These are like individual transactions. So a single user can be like in different tiers here. But just so you guys have an idea that there's actually a lot of value there. The average is 14. If you look at that, from 1 to 5 more or less, or from 0 to 5 is about 50%. But that also means that from above $5 is also 50%, right? That's why and of course there's a 5% group that spends 50 or more per transaction, or 50% transactions, 5% of $50 transactions. And that's why the average is so high. So this is actually like a very, very valuable place to be in. If you want to know more details about this chart or any other charts really, like look me up at the party tonight. If you get me enough drinks, I might even tell you stuff I'm not supposed to. So the other thing, like I just want to make sure you guys know, which obviously you do, is like this is not just about games, right? This is happening all over, like our all sorts of media. The only difference with games is that we're in a unique position to actually react and interact and improve. Once a song is out, it's kind of done. There's nothing Radiohead can do about it. But like on our case, we can release a game and then improve and improve and improve it based on the audience. The other thing I want to talk about very quickly is like when people talk about free, they say different things. And of course, there are literally games which are 100% free. It's a game somebody made. They just released it because they think it's cool. But these are not the ones like I'm talking about today. I'm talking more about the other end of the spectrum where you can actually make some money. And on that end, you have the sponsored ones where they're like ad supported or like a brand paid for it. There's free as trial, which is the traditional like iPhone generation 1 light paid model. And there's freemium, which is like really what I'm going to talk about today. Obviously, sponsored is in this particular case a game that Fish Labs made for Volkswagen. Fish Labs is a German developer, pretty cool high-end graphics. Free trial, again, it's like Angry Birds Lite. Only has like a limited number of levels that you can play. If you really want to play more Angry Birds, you need to get the paid version. And Smurfs Village from Capcom is an example of how we can, like really, the whole game is free. You really don't need to pay anything. Like you can play the game for years without spending any money. But on the other hand, like there will be like a small section of people who will be spending. So if you chart those types of games, those types of like monetizable free solutions on a usage and monetization chart, you get something like if your usage is here, monetization is there. Sponsored games, like free ad-supported games, they get a lot of usage because they're effectively free. But they're low on the monetization side because all you can make is like whatever CPM or whatever model you're using. On the usage, on a free trial game, you do make a bit more money because you're kind of upselling the premium game. But on the other hand, the usage is lower because the game by itself is limited in some way. So like even if people want to play more, they can't because there's only 5 levels. So it's not very high. Like you can actually monetize the usage very well on those games. And freemium, I think, is on the sweet spot of like usage and monetization. You can actually, you get a lot of usage because it's free, and you can also, that's where your biggest potential for money is. The catch is that obviously, like to make those games, there are different levels of complexity, right? If you're making just a sponsored game, you can basically just tag like a little banner there, and you're done. You don't need to worry about it ever again. If you're doing a free trial, it's a little bit more work because you need to start thinking about what's the right amount of time, what's the right amount of levels I need to give up. Oh, I gave too many levels, people never buy, or whatever. So there's a bit more work to do. And of course, freemium is a lot more work, which is I hope you've been getting that as well in the last 2 days. It's not just a lot of opportunity, but it also involves some commitment. Right. So what that effectively does, like if you're switching from like a paid or like a light paid model into freemium, there's a big difference because in the beginning you're kind of selling product, so you're worried about like I need to get some players in, which is reflected on the number of units or number of downloads or number of installs you get. And you're also thinking about monetization, so like which is the price. So like I need to get 10,000 downloads at $2, and that's kind of how you make your money. But on the you're always worried about like is this the right price? If I lower the price, you'll get more users, etc. But on freemium, it's slightly different. So you start worrying, it's like a service, so it's like a more persistent connection with the users. And then really you need to focus on retention, which is something that like ostensibly, I mean, everybody wanted to make good games, and we always strive to make the best games we can anyway. But like this fact that you need to get people engaged with the game over a long period of time is something that we haven't really focused on a lot. And then in this world, you're worried about things like like your active usage times how much money you make per user. You're worried about how much it costs to get somebody in your game versus how much money they kind of give you over time. So it's a different mindset you have if you're working with those games. So as a result, if you like all the skills you had as a mobile game designer, they kind of need to evolve. So I'm not going to be talking necessarily here about things like how to make a good mobile game, because those skills we already learned in the past generations. Now the focus should be, or at least what I want to do here in this short presentation is just get a focus on how do you get the freemium part right. So the first and foremost thing is just a change of attitude. So before it was more like a fire and forget thing. Now you really need to be more iterative and analytical. So you design, and then you see what people do with it, and then you design more, and then you see what people do with it, and then that's a big change. And that's why analytics is so important as well, because you need to know what people are doing so you can react to that. So this lecture, even though it's from Flurry and we're like an analytics company, I'm not here to try to convince you to use Flurry. I'm definitely here to try to convince you to use any analytics. Like, you have to. If you don't, just look at like your picture of your son in a wallet and remember that he might not be able to go to school if you don't do this. And then the other thing you have to worry about, like as a designer, is about these things: acquisition, retention, monetization. And a lot of designers are like, "Wow, I'm a creative soul. I can't be bothered with business." And Raf Koster said that on his lecture like a while ago, well, like a couple of hours before as well, like saying like, who here is doing creative business, and who here is fooling themselves into thinking that business is not, or that creative is not business anymore. And I think in this market, it's totally true. Like, you really need to. The roles have like entangled themselves in a way that you can't tell them apart anymore. So, if you need to think in those terms, then I'm just going to go quickly, like, through some examples of the kind of things you need to worry about now. So on the acquisition side, basically you need to try to think of ways of getting people into the game, and also like into getting their friends into the game. It's really important. So then the kind of things you're trying to measure are like, where are my players coming from? How much, do they cost me? What kind of quality are they? Like, if I bring somebody from this particular channel, are they going to be like strong active users? Are they going to be monetizable users? So you need to be thinking about those things. You need to be thinking about viral effects, so like how good the game is into getting you people to tell their friends about it. You need to be thinking about funnels. Where funnels are basically just looking at conversion of like people who start here, how many people move to the next stage, into the next stage, into the end, and things like looking at your tutorial funnel, like how many people start the tutorial, how many people finish the tutorial. If you haven't done that, I really suggest you do it. Even just to look at it and feel, so you can feel like horrible at yourself, like by how bad your tutorial is. It always is the first time. You need to be thinking about things like, how you're going to get people to interact with each other. Again, because if they interact with each other, they might stay longer, they might, bring their friends, etc. So in the past, we already like learned a little bit to do multiplayer games. So, this is kind of like a skill we already had, doing like turn-based, word game or something like that. But the new thing that comes to the table now is the social aspect, the things that the social gaming companies are doing. So these are things you need to learn and try to use to your favor. So in the case of social interaction in particular, you really want to get your players to, really be the ambassadors for a game. And the way you do it is, try to either, get them to spread the game so they can get some benefit, or try to do it in a way that, people look at them and say, oh, if X is playing this game, if my friend's playing this game, it's probably a good game, I should be playing it as well. This is an example from Trade Nations, how they kind of encourage you to invite your friends, and then you get some extra benefits if you're trading with them, so it's more fun to play with your friends, basically. And the reason why you should do this is because, again, it increases your, I didn't really explain those things, but lifetime value is, it's kind of like a measure of how long people stay in the game and how much money they spend over that time. So it's basically like anything you do to keep players longer and like happier, so they're more engaged with the game, is good for your LTV, and that's something you want up. And the cost of acquisition is something that how much you're actually like spending to get people into the game. So you want that to go down. So obviously, if you're getting your friends to invite their friends, then your cost of acquisition goes down as well, which is good. The other thing if you want to make the most of the acquisition, like in your game, you really want to make the initial experience smooth. And I don't mean just the tutorial, but the tutorial is a big part of it. But you really want people, when they come to the game for the first time, like you already probably paid some money to get the guy in the game anyway. So you really want to make sure they really understand what the game is about, and they really understand how to play it, and what are their long-term goals. And if they don't like the game, fair enough. Like they will move on to another game. But it's terrible. It would be terrible if somebody could actually like your game, but they gave up because the tutorial was too complex. There's like too many words, or like it's like I can't do this. So you could do worse for tutorials than looking what Zynga does. They're very good at like breaking this thing down and really analyzing it. But again, it's not just the tutorial. It's the first, like at Playfish, we used to call like the newbie experience, which is like anywhere from like, let's say, level 1 to 5, and you're kind of really worried about are these guys, do they have enough currency to do what they want? Are they progressing fast enough? Are there any like roadblocks? Is the game too hard, too quickly? Like we really want to make sure that people, because by a certain level they really understand the game, and they can make like a very good decision about this game is for me or not. And you just want to make sure they have all the information they need to make that decision. And again, if you do this, it's good for your both of your variables. And now switching from acquisition to retention. Retention is the part where I think, again, I mentioned like we have to do the most work. And again, in the beginning, or maybe if you just think of the light to pay mode, all you wanted was volume. You wanted like as many downloads as possible. Now you're not worried about it. You're more worried about, how can I get people to come back regularly? And then you're worried about things like, how many times people play per day, what times do they play, how long they stay in the game, how am I keeping people who play this week next week, or also how long do I keep players overall in the game? That's the kind of thing you're worried about. When you add a new feature, you should track like how many people are actually using that feature, because as designers, I'm sure you want to do the cool, best thing, and that what you think is cool is not necessarily what your users think is cool. And I've done many times things that when we tracked actually how many people are using it, it was kind of very easy for me to say, okay, we need to take this out, because it's basically adding weight to the time it takes to load the game. And then there's not enough people like enjoying that thing, so why is it there? And then things like engagement, like the games industry about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was like a big talk about metrics and how you gameplay metrics. So there's a lot of work that has been done around this as well, like how long people stay in the game, how long people should move between levels, etc., etc. But the things that again that are new is like the need for constant balancing, the need for keep updating the content in the game, and the need for really encourage player interaction to make sure they because playing with friends is better than just playing by yourself. So you need to find ways to encourage that as well. And importantly, re-engagement with something like before, if somebody stopped playing the game, you didn't care because they paid already the download, but now you really need to try to find creative ways to bring those people back. So how do you keep people interested? You basically need to keep things coming to the game, so they always feel like, oh, there's something new here. And then different ways to do it. I mean, this is from a big time gangster from Glue, and they do a very good job of bringing new stuff regularly to the game, which again is very important to keep the players interested. And again, if they're interested, they will stay longer and they'll spend more. Social interaction. So you really want to try to find ways for people to kind of interact with each other. It can be more explicit, like words with friends, or it can be less explicit, which like many other games do. But you want to try to find ways to generate collaboration or competition. Of course, there's a classic Tap Zoo, animals in danger. I have no idea how many sick animals are every day. Unfortunately, I think they don't divulge those numbers, but I would be really curious to see how many sick animals are saved every day, to give us a little hope. Re-engagement, again, you want to try to bring people back, and there's different ways to do it. It can be part of your core mechanics, which a lot of people use the appointments, which is okay, you say it, you tell the game you're going to be back in X hours. If you don't, the game punishes you for that. Push notifications, it's something very powerful on iPhone. You can actually, there's a channel that you can call the user's attention, say, hey, something happened in the game, you need to react to it. And just plain player interaction, somebody did something in the game, you're gonna get somebody played their turn, or you're gonna get some sort of message to kind of bring you back to the game. So kind of need to be figuring out ways to do this. This is from Gun Bros, another fine Glue game. Yeah, I didn't mean to make this into a Glue thing, but you guys are awesome. Anyway, good LTV. Constant balancing. You really want to ensure that that's one thing. Again, you probably didn't worry as much in the old games. Just release the game and that's it. Maybe you would say, oh, we have a lot of players stuck on level 32. Maybe we should do something about it. Now you're more focused. You really need to be worrying about that all the time, because you want to keep players progressing through the game. If that's your goal. I mean, if you want people to be spending money very quickly, then you need to adjust the game for that as well. So you really need to think what you want to do and make sure you're always tuning the game for that. So you see all the time, people, all these games have updates, every week, every 2 weeks, saying, adjusting things in the game. The thing I really like about these updates is I think the people who write them are probably So probably the development team sends a list to marketing, and marketing like puts it on the thing, and like nobody, the development team always says things like tutorial improvements. So people who are playing the game, they're past the tutorial like months. Like they'll never see those improvements. They don't care. It's like that kind of thing shouldn't be there. But of course, probably the marketing people don't know how like to challenge that as well. It's just so funny. Like actually, like just read those every now and then. You see a lot of these things like economy balancing. It's like such like dev speak. Like we shouldn't really be telling the consumer like that kind of thing, to be honest. But I think we're too honest sometimes. Again, good for your LTV. On the monetization side, the switch in the mindset is like, in the beginning you were trying to, or on the traditional premium model, you're always trying to see like, how can I make this game so awesome that people want to pay full price? Now you need to change the mindset from like, how can I make this game so awesome on a regular basis so people will be willing to give me money, even if it's smaller chunks, but like regularly. So it's a big difference in how you actually do your game. So the things you want to measure, all different types of ARPU, depending on your, per day, per paying user, however you think is relevant, probably all of them. How many users are actually paying users? Payment funnels, again, the funnels are something a lot of the web people do, and I think it's the social guys are doing as well. And of course, like you kind of just need to know like how many people started a transaction, how many people clicked on buy, and how many people actually spent afterwards. Like it's really important to know, so you can find out where the problem is. I mean, on iPhone, you kind of know that once they kind of accept, the chance that the transaction is going to go through, it's very high because the Apple support is good. And then if you're doing Android, the biggest dropout is because nobody has a Google checkout account. And again, like this is something you need to keep balancing over and over and over. And that's why you measure it. You measure it so you can kind of improve it. And you look at it and say, okay, we're losing a lot of people in this particular screen on the payments. Why is that? Is it because it's not clear enough the value? Is it because the buy button is hidden, or what kind of problem are we having? So the other thing I should say about analytics that very often it will not tell you what to do to solve the problem, but at least will point to you like where the problem is. Like that's why you need talented people like to afterwards kind of deal with the data. And then social interaction. This is very monetizable as well because as we know, people want to be different and better than others. Sometimes both. And games that do things to differentiate each other, like or to get an edge, like can definitely get some value from there. This is High Noon from Happy Latte. Really nice game. Regular content updates, again, you can also monetize by having frequent content in the game. So just adding timely items. Last week or like a few days ago was 4th of July. So Zombie Farm had their Liberty item pack, it's like timely, it's limited time, good for your LTV. And again, constant balancing. I don't know if I mentioned, like you really need to be balancing everything all the time. And on payments, it's the same. Like you really need to be working to make sure like people have the right transaction. You want to merchandise. You want to make sure the price points are right. The in-app purchase is like easy to find. This is original gangster from Admired. And another chart. Which I guess you guys will find interesting, is like this is like how much we looked at those games again and we're seeing like what kind of items people are spending their money on, and this is like per transaction, so it's not necessarily like per player, but per transaction. Consumable are things you buy once and you have to buy them again if you want to use them again. Personalization are things you buy only once and they don't have any gameplay value, they just serve to kind of make you different. And functional are things you buy only once but they give you a gameplay benefit. So as you can see, I think people want to be different, but they try to do that more through functional items rather than like plain straight customization stuff. Just to wrap up, because I'm very close to my time, or very close after my time. Freemium, is it your future? I mean, it's not necessarily for everybody. I mean, if EA has a premium strategy for a reason. If you have like a high quality game that everybody wants, then you might as well charge for it. But anybody else like really should be thinking about this and making sure you're not ignoring what could be like probably the biggest change in the games industry in the last few years. It's also very important to be humble and know that all the rules you learn. I mean, you will keep some of them, but there's some you really need to forget and like kind of reinvent yourself. And the last thought I want to leave is there's like a bunch of rules and guidance, and you've been hearing that from other people as well. But just putting stuff together, just putting rules together, does not make like a great game. If you make a great game, you can actually get some rules out of it. But the opposite, like if you just try to put some rules together, you might end up with like something you don't want. So with that, I thank you. And any questions?